In a world that prides itself on progress, there are moments that remind us how far we still have to go. Moments that challenge the very principles we claim to uphold. Equality, respect, education, resilience, love, justice, and meaning and justice. This story begins on what should have been an ordinary day for a prominent businesswoman. A day when success and hard work were expected to speak louder than the color of her skin or the gender she was born into. But reality had other plans. She arrived at the private hangar with every right to step aboard her jet, a jet she owned, a symbol of her dedication, determination, and unrelenting pursuit of excellence. The air was thick with anticipation as the crew prepared for her arrival. Yet the welcome she received was anything but ordinary. Disbelief hung in the air, followed by hesitation and then outright denial. A quiet, calculated confrontation was brewing, one that would spark outrage and lead to consequences no one could have predicted. What was she stopped? Was it a misunderstanding, a mistake, or something deeper? This wasn't just about a missed flight. This was about identity, about perception, and about the audacity of questioning a person's right to their own success. The incident would later ignite a firestorm of debate, not just about aviation, but about the biases that still persist in places where they have no place. To fully understand what happened, we need to look closer, not just at this moment, but at the systems and attitudes that made it possible. Who was this woman? What had she endured to reach this point? And why did this encounter end with her making a decision that would send shockwaves through the industry and beyond? This is a story about power, about how it's earned, how it's wielded, and how it's sometimes questioned in the most unthinkable ways. Stay with us as we unfold the events of that fateful day, a day that began with a woman walking toward her jet and ended with an entire crew walking away from their jobs. This is not just a story of confrontation. It's a story of resilience, of standing firm when the world refuses to recognize your worth, and it's a story you won't forget. Private aviation is a world unto itself, one where opulence reigns and exclusivity is the norm. This is a realm designed for those who have reached the pinnacle of success, where convenience and luxury intersect at 300 feet. Every detail, from the pristine lounges to the meticulous protocols, is tailored to ensure seamless experiences for elite clientele. Here, there are no long security lines, no crowded boarding gates, just the quiet assurance that everything has been prepared for your arrival. The passengers, titans of industry, global celebrities, and trailblazing entrepreneurs. The expectation? Effortless, unquestioned access to the comforts they've earned. But what happens when these expectations collide with biases too ingrained to be ignored? Our story takes us to one of these exclusive terminals, where a woman whose name is synonymous with excellence is about to encounter an obstacle that has nothing to do with aviation regulations or logistics. Tracy, a celebrated entrepreneur and self-made millionaire, had built her empire from the ground up. Her jet wasn't just a means of travel. It was a symbol of her journey, one that had seen her break barriers and challenge stereotypes. Today, she was scheduled to board her private aircraft for a routine flight. But as she approached the tarmac, the atmosphere shifted. The crew, a seasoned team of professionals, had been preparing for this flight all morning. Their checklist was precise: verify passenger manifests, inspect the cabin, and ensure every detail was flawless. Yet, when Tracy arrived, she was not met with the customary deference afforded to private jet owners. Instead, there was hesitation, a momentary pause that quickly gave way to something more unsettling. Faces that had been composed now reflected confusion and doubt. Whispers exchanged among the crew hinted at a shared disbelief. Could she really be the owner? The idea seemed, to them, almost implausible. Despite her calm demeanor and confident stride, Tracy could sense the skepticism. It wasn't the first time she'd encountered this kind of reaction, but here, in a space she had earned access to, it stung differently. She presented her identification and credentials, expecting the matter to be resolved swiftly. But instead of acknowledgement, she was met with thinly veiled excuses. A mistake in the system, they claimed. Perhaps there was a mix-up with the passenger list. Their words were polite, but their actions spoke volumes. The tension escalated as Tracy stood her ground. She calmly reiterated her ownership, providing proof that left no room for doubt. But it wasn't enough. The crew's demeanor shifted from hesitant to defensive, as though her insistence was an affront rather than a rightful claim. Their refusal to board her wasn't about documentation or protocol. It was about perception. In their eyes, she didn't fit the mold of who they believed a jet owner should be. What began as a simple misunderstanding was now spiraling into something far more charged. Airport staff began to take notice, their curiosity piqued by the unusual scene unfolding on the tarmac. A few approached cautiously, their expressions a mix of confusion and unease. The unspoken question hung in the air. Why was this woman, who clearly had every right to be here, being treated as though she were an outsider? This was no longer about a flight. It was about something deeper, a confrontation with the biases that still permeate even the most elite spaces. For Tracy, this moment was more than a personal slight. It was a stark reminder of the obstacles that remain, even for those who have reached the heights of success. And for the crew, their actions would soon have consequences far beyond what they could have anticipated. As the situation reached a boiling point, one thing became clear. This was not an incident that would fade quietly into the background. It was the beginning of a story that would challenge not just the individuals involved, but the systems and attitudes that allowed such a moment to occur. The jet sat waiting on the tarmac, its engines silent, as the first chapter of this confrontation came to a close. What happened next would leave no doubt about who truly held the power in this encounter. The confrontation that began with a simple denial quickly became a test of resolve. Tracy refused to back down, asserting her ownership with the calm yet firm demeanor of someone who had faced far greater challenges. She was no stranger to adversity. Her success had been hard-won, each milestone achieved through perseverance and grit. But today, she found herself not just defending her rights as a jet owner, but standing against a mindset that questioned her place in this world of privilege. The crew's refusal wasn't just an isolated act. It was a reflection of biases that too often go unchecked. As Tracy presented undeniable proof of her ownership, their resistance only deepened, exposing an unwillingness to accept what was plainly true. It wasn't about the documents she provided or the legitimacy of her claim. It was about the assumptions they had made the moment they saw her. Meanwhile, airport staff and bystanders began to gather, their curiosity evolving into questions, into potential outcomes. Some watched with a mix of sympathy and disbelief, while others seemed reluctant to intervene. Among them was an airport official who hesitated, torn between his duty to uphold professionalism and his instinct to avoid conflict. His inaction spoke volumes, highlighting the pervasive nature of the biases at play. For Tracy, this was more than an affront. It was a moment of reckoning. She had fought too hard to reach this point to let it slip away due to someone else's prejudice. She remained steadfast, her voice unwavering as she demanded the respect she deserved. But for the crew, her determination was met with resistance, as though acknowledging her ownership would somehow challenge their worldview. The situation was rapidly escalating, and the stakes were becoming clear. This wasn't just about a missed flight or a moment of disrespect. It was about power. Who has it, who wields it, and who gets to decide who belongs. And for the crew, their actions were about to set off a chain of events that would reverberate far beyond the walls of this terminal. The pivotal moment arrived like a thunderclap, undeniable in its intensity. Tracy stood firm, unwavering, as she presented her final piece of documentation, proof so irrefutable that the room seemed to shift under its weight. Her voice, calm yet resolute, pierced through the lingering disbelief. The crew could no longer ignore the truth staring them in the face. She was the rightful owner of the jet. The silence that followed was deafening, a stark contrast to the murmur of doubt that had preceded it. The crew exchanged uneasy glances, their confidence unraveling with each passing second. Faces once marked by skepticism now bore expressions of shock and shame, Their rigid postures softened as they grappled with the magnitude of their error. It wasn't just a professional mistake. It was a personal reckoning. A moment that demanded they confront the biases they had carried, perhaps unconsciously, into this encounter. For Tracy, vindication came not with triumphal gloating but with quiet dignity. She didn't need to raise her voice or demand an apology. Her mere presence, her unyielding resolve spoke louder than any words could. Yet this was not the end of the confrontation. In her mind, justice demanded more than acknowledgement. It required accountability. In a decisive move, Tracy exercised her authority as the jet's owner, with a measured tone that left no room for debate. She informed the crew of their immediate dismissal. This was no act of spite, but a deliberate statement, a refusal to tolerate the kind of prejudice that had fueled this incident. As her words hung in the air, the weight of the moment settled over everyone present. The crew, now stripped of their positions, faced not only professional consequences, but also the hard truth of their actions. The emotional impact was profound. For the crew, the humiliation of being publicly called out was compounded by the realization of their own biases. For the airport staff and bystanders, the incident served as a sobering reminder of the societal inequities that persist, even in spaces reserved for the elite. And for Tracy, this was a moment of personal and symbolic victory, a declaration that her success and identity were not up for debate. As she boarded her jet, the same jet she had been denied entry to just moments before, there was a sense of quiet resolution. The engines roared to life, signaling the end of the confrontation and the beginning of a broader conversation about privilege, prejudice, and power. The fallout from the incident was swift and far-reaching. News of what had transpired spread quickly, igniting a firestorm of media coverage and public discourse. Headlines across the aviation and mainstream press detailed the shocking events, sparking outrage and debate. Social media platforms lit up with commentary as people from all walks of life weighed in on the implications of the crew's actions and Tracy's response. Within the aviation community, the incident prompted a wave of introspection. Industry leaders issued statements condemning discrimination, while others scrambled to implement training programs aimed at addressing unconscious bias. The company that employed the dismissed crew faced mounting pressure to reevaluate its hiring practices and ensure accountability at every level. For many, this was a moment to reflect on the broader culture of exclusivity that pervades private aviation and the ways in which it can perpetuate systemic inequities. For Tracy, the aftermath was both empowering and exhausting. She became a reluctant symbol of resilience, her story resonating far beyond the confines of the airport terminal. Invitations poured in for interviews, panel discussions, and public speaking engagements. Yet her focus remained on effecting meaningful change. She used her platform to advocate for diversity and inclusion, emphasizing the need for industries to not just talk about equality, but actively work toward it. The dismissed crew faced their own reckoning. Professional reputations tarnished, they became the subject of widespread criticism and scrutiny. Some issued apologies, acknowledging the harm their actions had caused, while others retreated into silence. Their experience became a cautionary tale, a stark reminder of the consequences of allowing biases to dictate behavior. But the impact of this incident extended beyond those directly involved. It served as a wake-up call for countless others, prompting discussions in boardrooms, classrooms, and households around the world. People began to ask themselves uncomfortable questions. How do we confront our own biases? How do we ensure that success is met with respect, regardless of who achieves it? And how do we create systems that truly reflect the values we claim to uphold? The jet's engines may have carried Tracy away from that terminal, but the ripples of her actions continued to spread, challenging individuals and institutions alike to rise to a higher standard. The story of Tracy is more than a tale of triumph over adversity. It's a call to action, a reminder that progress isn't measured by words or intentions, but by the choices we make in the moments that matter. Her decision to stand firm in the face of prejudice wasn't just about defending her own rights. It was about demanding a world where such confrontations are no longer necessary. This incident laid bare the biases that still shape our perceptions and interactions, even in spaces meant to celebrate success and achievement. It challenged industries to look inward, to acknowledge the ways in which they fall short, and to commit to doing better. And it inspired countless individuals to reflect on their own roles in building a more equitable society. As Tracy once said in the wake of the incident, change doesn't come from waiting for the world to catch up. It comes from refusing to accept anything less than what you deserve. Her story is a testament to the power of resilience, the importance of accountability, and the enduring pursuit of justice. And for all of us, it's a reminder that the fight for equality is far from over, but it's a fight worth continuing. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for more gripping stories.